Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I'd like to go ahead and ask everybody to take their seats, please, so we can get started. Here she comes. Okay. Okay, looks like we have everybody here. So at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Sykes to lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity for us to come together and debate the important needs and means of our school board today and have the opportunity to do that in the peace and the comfort of our country. We ask, though, that you embrace the families that have recently been undergoing tragedies in our communities. Give them grace, give them peace. Even closer to home, we've had families that are part of this administration. Brian and Dawn Buffalo's family and Bill Rawls' family. We ask that you put your grace and peace around them, protective hedge, lift and keep that family through their trying times. We thank you for the men and women that serve our country so nobly, protecting us and giving us our liberties. We ask that you watch over them. We ask you watch over the firemen and policemen that are out there protecting us day to day. And we thank you for all the liberties that you have given us. And we ask all of this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Sykes. At this time, I would like to call to order the Clay County School Board meeting, June 18th, 2015. So I'd like to welcome all the citizens of Clay County. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a yellow card, which you will find located in the back of the room, indicating the specific item number or the topic that you wish to speak about, and please turn it in promptly. You can bring that up here and give it to Ms. Cornegie, who's sitting right here on the corner. Please note that no additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the discussion agenda. Your participation is welcome and appreciated. And before we move into the first item, I would just like to open tonight's meeting with a brief statement of clarification concerning the June 8th special meeting. On Monday, June 8th, the school board held a special meeting which was called for by the superintendent at the May 21st regular meeting and was legally advertised in accordance with the Florida statutes that governs special school board meetings. I was completely caught off guard, as I'm sure many of you were, by the accusation from 2 veteran school board members at the beginning of the meeting that the meeting had not been properly advertised and as such was illegal. I was deeply disappointed and personally offended at the accusations that were made, not only to the superintendent and Mr. Sykes, but to the very idea that I, as a sitting chairman, would allow an illegal meeting to take place and would put to question the core of my integrity. I can assure you that at no time did I ever doubt the legal status of our meeting. Nevertheless, for the benefit of the board and the public, I requested a legal opinion from our attorney, and he assured this board that we were in solid legal standing with the proper advertising to hold the special meeting. However, 2 board members declined to accept this professional advice, continued their protest, and walked out of the meeting, inviting unnecessary controversy in the media and once again raising public doubt about the competency of this school board. Let me be very clear. At no time prior to the meeting did either of the 2 board members reach out to me as chair or anyone else in the district to express their concerns regarding the legitimacy of the meeting, which would have been the professional thing to do. This would not have violated Sunshine Law. I would have taken action and responded to their concern without having to create such public embarrassment. I want to clarify for the record that the June 8th special meeting was properly advertised and as such was a legally conducted meeting. This has been substantiated not only by Florida law but by legal opinion of the previous school board attorney during the regular school board meeting of June 19, 2014, and in an email dated August 14, 2014, where he clearly articulated the same argument that was made on June 8, 2015 by Mr. Sykes. In my opinion, none of this was necessary. None of this was in the best interest of our kids, our employees, or the advancement of the school district. I want to assure my fellow board members and the citizens of this county that I always have and always will continue to take very seriously my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida. It is my commitment to each of you to serve with the utmost integrity and honor, and at no time will I ever compromise my core principles for personal or political gain. Okay, so with that, I would like to just, for the record, note that items that have been pulled from the consent agenda to discussion, items C4, C5, and C35. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adoption of the consent agenda minus those 3 items.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhausen. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, second item up is, you know what? We just passed the consent agenda. Okay. So I apologize. I had several people that had yellow cards on those items. So let me just go ahead and the first person is Tracy Butler. She wanted to speak to consent agenda item 3A, the DES contract.
Well, that should have been pulled before we voted. We should have probably
I hadn't voted yet, so.
Right.
Yeah,
This,
no, we're not pulling these items. These people just asked to speak to them. They were not requested to be pulled.
In the
No.
Madam Chairman, in the past, when someone
Miss
fills out.
Studdard, we
Madam
did this,
Chairman,
we've
may I
done
address
this.
the board?
We've done this at the last 4 or
Yeah.
5 meetings.
Madam Chairman,
So-
I'm just telling you that in the past 22 years, when someone fills out a green card on an item that was on the consent agenda, it was pulled to the discussion so that they would be given the courtesy to be able to speak to the item before the board votes on it. It seems a little ridiculous to have someone come speak on an item after
know.
it's already been voted on.
I know,
I'm
and I
saying how
just
it's done in the
stated that
past.
I
You can do
apologize.
it any way you want to, but I'm telling you,
Thank
that's
you.
the way it always was in the past.
I know, and for the past several meetings, I was bringing these people up before we voted on it, and I apologize. I got it out of order tonight. So if you would still like to speak on it, please feel free.
May I say something?
No.
For the future, I think it'd be better
Mrs.
if you pulled it and then we let them speak at that time.
Mrs. Butler.
I have to agree with the discussion because I think person in the audience is not going to feel that they have anything to say if it's going to go on the consent agenda and automatically be approved there. So I think if we're allowed to put something in, I think it should be pulled to the discussion at that point, because the whole point we want to speak to it is so that you guys can have discussion about it and it doesn't get carte blanche approval. What I wanted to talk about is I did print this agenda out on the 16th, on Tuesday, and I'm rolling along thinking everything's fine. I get a call from one of our members, our CESPA members, this afternoon about an hour before I leave to come here in a panic mode, wanting to know why we are privatizing a programmer analyst position. And I thought certainly they must be in error, because I looked over the agenda and I don't recall anything about a programmer analyst position. So I pulled back up the agenda again, and something had been put on. So first I want to say that it's very disheartening to pull the agenda whenever it's first placed and then pull it again in the days leading up to the meeting and it's been changed or something's been added. So I don't know that, I don't even know if that's even allowed after a certain point, and I think that needs to be looked into. I think
Okay.
there needs to be a cutoff date. As for this position, I do know that back in March we had two programmer analyst positions that were cut on the allocations when Ms. Adams was still here. And then and so of course they both were our members. They called us, they were upset that their positions had been cut and they were having to go and apply. And of course that's a very specified, very specific area. So we have to have a lot of talks with our IT people saying, look, maybe go get some more training to make you more marketable. But then to hear that it goes back on the agenda to be subbed out or contracted out definitely gives me great concern. And so I would like for someone to give us some explanation so our folks know that this isn't a trend that we're going to see, because whenever we start subcontracting things out, our people get very nervous.
Yeah, Mr. Van Zandt will be glad to address that.
That position isn't being subbed out, it's currently being interviewed for. We've yet to find somebody with the skills to manipulate our very, very old version of terms, and that position has a lot of primary responsibility in payroll. So if we want to continue to meet payroll without any hiccups, we're going to sub it out until we find a person to hire for it, and I believe that's one of the duties in the two jobs that are, has it already closed and y'all been interviewing, or is it one of the two that are open? It's already closed. We just haven't hired for it yet, and that person's contract ends June 30th. So we're going to keep paying everybody if it's okay with everybody, and when we get somebody qualified to fill the position, we're going to hire it and put them under the Florida retirement system in our allocation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item was C13, Mr. Gottschalk.
I'm Fred Gottschalk, 429 Madeira Drive, Orange Park, Florida. The reason I wanted to discuss C13 is the attachment, 4.51 human growth hormone. I've read the attachment. It had to do with health and well-being and things like that, but I never saw human growth hormone mentioned in there. It had a lot to do with education of students in various areas, but unless it's under the substance abuse heading, I don't know. But I just wanted to point that out. And growth was misspelled. Small.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gottschalk.
If I might, I think that should have been labeled human growth and development, because I think that's what
Yeah,
that policy addresses, us educating students on
Yeah.
human growth and development.
okay. Thank you. Okay, the next item is C20, the May budget amendments, Gwen Shangle.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What?
Go ahead.
No, it's all right. It's fun. It's just probably less confusing than this for most everyone. Item C20, there are two attachments. I don't know if everybody here took a good look at them. The first one with the overall totals show a difference for the May budget of about, well, it goes from 327 million to 330, almost 31 million. It's about $4 million difference. So I don't understand and don't pretend to understand finances. There's all these differences in what you can spend, what you can't spend, what you have spent, what you're planning to spend. I don't get it. Don't pretend to. But what did jump out at me was when you look at the second backup PDF file on page 2, very first thing in there is instruction services, and there's a additional $525,000 there. There's $100,000 extra for support services. On the next page, there's $100,000 for school administration, and there's actually a reduction of $160,000. Actually, total transportation services comes out to minus almost $40,000. What I'm wondering is how much of this is actually going toward education. How much is this right on the front lines? Going for teachers, instruction, materials, paying more for district personnel. Some of the district personnel have gotten new positions whose salary, their raise in their income is half of what some of your food services and bus drivers are making. Half for one step up into a new position. So I'm kind of concerned about the people on the front line. I've heard at just about every school board meeting all kinds of accolades given to our military service members, some of which are here. I'm all for that. I have tremendous respect for those who serve the public in any way. And our teachers and our bus drivers and all of the workers in our school that are one-on-one, face-to-face with those students every day, those are our local Clay County frontline troops. Those are our troops. We need to support them, first and foremost, because they're the ones that are going to win the battle to move Clay County forward to compete with St. John's. They're the ones that are going to win the battle internationally. The United States is 27th in education. That's shameful. Please, now that it's already passed, come back to this at some point in time and make sure that the money is going to teachers that need it so that we can attract the best and the brightest. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then the last item that was on the consent agenda, item C33, Mr. Fred Gottschalk again.
Fred Gottschalk, 429 Madeira Drive, Orange Park. This is a write-off of uncollectible checks at the schools. A person that isn't going to back up a check shouldn't write it. but there's two in particular that got my attention. And I'll go across the street right now and collect your $500 for you from Island Grill. I've done collections. I was in service station 6 years, only ever had one check I couldn't collect. And I didn't hurt anybody. But if you like, I'll go over to Island Grill right now, collect that $500 check. And the other one is Cannon Physical Therapy. They owe you $175. What's this? You can't collect money from businesses? I see a way they're going to be taking advantage of us. And I'm sure Mr. Sykes can probably address the fact that somebody writes you a check for over $500. I'm sure there's some legal problems there for the company that did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Outjock. Okay. The next item, I think that's it, yeah. Oh, those are all in the discussion, okay. Recognition and awards. So Mr. Van Zant is going to present Perfect Attendance Awards.
I tell you, it always amazes me what a team families become when they're putting children and grandchildren through school. And we had a few of these students we were able to recognize last month. Middleburg High School had their senior awards night the same night we had our school board meeting, so we couldn't quite get to every student in Clay County. But for 13 years, to never miss a day of school is absolutely phenomenal. I hope this young person goes into something that we can hire in the Clay County School District, because that would be the kind of employee I would want working for us too, that never misses a day, that you can totally count on. So that work ethic is just absolutely incredible. So I would like to bring up Allison Fulford.
All right.
You know, this has been quite a year in the Clay County School District on several fronts. But tonight is the last meeting for, it's just absolutely amazing, Miss Toni McCabe, what she's brought to this school district, and to serve for 30 years and be 29 years old. I don't even know how she pulls it off with the grace that she does every day. But somebody that's just done a tremendous job for us. Miss McCabe, would you join me and Mr. Sykes? And Dan, would you like to tell us what we're doing here?
This flag has been flown over various missions in Afghanistan. That flag is flown over that country in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, and here's a certificate of authenticity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
A rose between the thorns.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to say that Pete McCabe and I both are very excited about retirement, but we love public education and we love Clay County. So our thoughts right now are all filled with gratitude, and it's because of the relationships that we've had with all of you. And I have to say, I have been so fortunate to have a hard-working HR team, so I must take a moment and thank Dr. Henry, Terry Stanalonis, Linda Lancaster, Sam Wright, Marilyn Ware, and all of the HR team. They do great things for our employees. So thank you very much. Support one another, It's tough work, public education. And just know that Pete and I are very grateful for having worked with all of you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe. I know you're going to be greatly missed. Okay. The next item that was on the agenda was a presentation from Garber Ford. I believe this is going to be rescheduled, possibly in August. I don't think they could make it tonight. So the next item up is scheduled citizens request. We have one, Ms. Isla Breen.
Thank you for getting that right.
Yeah. Go ahead and please state your name and address for the record.
Well, my information is on record, but my name is Isla Breen.
Okay.
Over the past few years, I've come before you to ask you for answers on salary benefits, health benefits, layoffs of teachers, everything. However, I have also seen a problem that I feel I need to address and see if we can move forward with it. Currently, we are in the throes of reaping the benefits, doubtful as they may be, of constantly changing our standards in midstream. Students in kindergarten through third grade are the scapegoats of learning. Everything new is tried on those grades first. By the time these little souls reach fourth grade, we are off on another tangent seeking answers in a new curriculum. We keep assuring those at fourth grade and above have any idea of how to work in that new set of standards. Yet we test new strategies and old tests that are no longer significant due to learning new theories, or current strategies that are tested in unproven tests. Common Core is merely our latest example of insanity. Just as students begin to form their own thoughts and follow the processes of the curriculum, it changes. Now, I don't want anybody to think I believe in stagnant thinking. As long as the methods are clear, defined, and easy to follow, both students and teachers are successful. Families are happy as the students become lifelong learners. As I attempted to share with you a few weeks ago, this has been the single most stressful year almost anyone in teaching in Clay County has ever endured. I'd like to approach you with a change of thinking, to be proactive. If we continue in our current trend, students will report back to school for the 2016-2017 school year around August 8th or 10th. We'll probably end around June 6th of 2017. Let's help our students prep for the next school year correctly during the summer/autumn of 2016. Summer school, in my belief, should be autumn school. Let's approach this in a better manner. Every single one of us knows having summer school begin shortly after school ends in regular school year is the absolute pits. No child or teacher has the stamina to concentrate or learn after being beaten up by the end-of-year testing and assessments required. Parents are tired of waking up resentful, frustrated children, driving them to school, and listening to how unfair it all is to the student during summer vacation when everybody else is playing. Nobody wants to be in summer school these first few weeks of school, or of vacation. Now, leap forward to mid-July. Flag Day and Independence Day activities are over. It is hot, steamy, and debilitating. The swim pool is now boring. They've been there so many times. Baseball and other sports are in the evenings, and nobody really wants to do much in the heat. We won't even mention the heat again. This is the perfect time to introduce autumn school at all sites, not just junior and senior highs, every single school. Autumn school is preparatory as well as remedial. Of course, there are some holes that need filling and should be remediated. However, this is where students can be charmed into exploring new worlds. Concepts to be taught can be introduced through project-based exploration. This is where we grab their attention and tell them if they want more, just wait until school starts. So much can be accomplished this way, especially if we open up to math, social studies, and science, in addition to reading summer camp. For example, every Cub Scout troop has derby car races. The Scouts need to build the cars and fine-tune them so they can win the race. Why can't something like this project be offered during autumn school? Budding engineers can build toothpick bridges and test them for load-bearing strength. Our dynamic writers can begin producing a school newsletter for the students. Young photographers can meet with student PowerPoint developers to create presentations for back-to-school nights at their schools. Give those young Jim Harbin winners that we all just congratulated a short time ago a goal to achieve beyond the competition, honor and build on their skills. Secondary school students can earn some of their community service hours helping to plan and set up classrooms, sport fields, facilities, and gardens at every site. One of my students a few years ago spent time during the summer explaining and creating a better layout of my classroom, since in his words, "I know how you teach, and I know the third grade students from this year." He was right. The classroom worked very well the next year. Enrichment will lead our students to higher levels and build determination to succeed where constantly barraging them with remediation dulls any desire to learn. The creativity is what is missing from our curriculum. Just how gray can we make our students' lives? Why are we not accessing more experts in their fields, such as the female eco-engineer that I called into my class, to motivate our students who needed the little extra attention, encouragement, and belief in themselves? The discussion was incredible, and students asked questions about the field and what kind of education they'd need to become an engineer. It wasn't limited to just boys. The girls were asking as well. Projects that address what I've called the bubble students, those who never receive the extras because they are B and C students, they're not gifted and they're not so low that they need extra help, have proven that these students, those B and C students, will be the leaders in our society. They respond enthusiastically to this type of motivation. Those students are ready and anxiously waiting for school to begin. Parents are willing to support these activities financially. They are searching for enrichment classes for their students. This is especially true at the elementary level. Many families are paying for childcare throughout the summer vacation for far less than active enrichment. This idea needs to be developed, built with help from families and teachers, guided and supported by our leaders, you. We, the teachers, families, and community, need time and support from you, the school board and superintendent, to make life better for our children. You are the missing part of this entire equation. We need your advocacy. You need to tell the Department of Education, enough is enough. Let's develop Clay County Schools into the role model for the entire state. Together, we can build the bright futures. Join us. Did you have any questions?
No, I just have a comment. I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard a concept like that, and quite frankly, I think it's great out-of-the-box thinking. So
Thank you.
I would certainly.
Well, there are facts to back it up. I did this. I'm from California. I'm one of those crazy, wild people from California.
That's okay. I'm from California too.
Okay,
so
you know what I'm talking about. I married a Florida boy, so I'm okay. When I was there, we noticed the same gaping hole because we were going through the changes of standards as well. And the biggest part that was the problem is the kids came back almost immediately. 2 weeks is not enough time to detox from everything we've done during the year. It just isn't. But if you start about 2 weeks before the end of, before they have to report back, and then back that up another couple, you can do 2 and 3 week sessions that will raise your scores tremendously if that's what you're worried about. But what they really do is they motivate the kids. That garden that I have at my school, I know a couple of you have been out there to see it. I thought at first it was just crazy California lady coming and trying to learn how to grow things in Florida. What was awesome were the amount of little people at our school, and I consider anybody under 4th grade a little person. They came to our class and they asked questions. Our 2nd grade teachers had to jaunt through the garden and they got to ask whatever they wanted. My students did the presentation for them. I don't present the Veterans Day performance written by me at my school. I help the kids collect the information, but they're the ones doing the performance. They're the ones who put it together. They are the ones who pick what they want to say. We need to honor our kids more, and we need to tap into that. We can't make it any more dull. I mean, it is dull. When you have children falling asleep during some of the instruction, you know it's dull. You have got to get them out and do. The children that I have in my garden club, They take home a 5-gallon container filled with the soil and everything that they need and the seeds, and we have a whole group of kids that live in apartments, have no yard, but they take those buckets home and they come back the next year and tell me how excited they were to give the squash to their mom for dinner, how excited they were to have the beans. My garden, everybody knows, come and pick during the summer. I'm not there every day. Do what needs to be done. Last year, we kept 6 families going on our vegetables out of that garden. That's the dedication of the children. They'll give it to us if we'll ask and give them the ways to do it.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very
That's my
much.
soapbox.
I certainly think that might be worth, yeah, definitely out of the box. I like that. Okay. Yep. I like it. Okay. I took some notes too, so, all right. Okay, so this is going to be the last call for yellow cards as we're going to be moving into our discussion items. Are there any other folks that would like to turn in a yellow card? Okay. So with that, we will move to the discussion agenda. The first item up is the superintendent's update.
Well, you gave me the perfect segue because we actually have quite a few exciting things going on this summer that I'm aware of. Over the past several years, our schools have gone really probably, 3 or 4 years from about 0 STEM robotics clubs after school in elementary schools to 23. We have some just really incredible people in our instructional division that write a whole lot of grants that have put these robotics programs together, and they've done a lot of it through the Department of Defense grants. So we're trying to pick up that slack where we can. There's just an incredible amount of extracurricular activities going on in and out of our elementary schools and junior highs, and we might have to ride around one day and see what you're looking at and see what I'm seeing, because it's not always the same thing. I was wanting to just give the board an update. Monday will be the first meeting of the Northeast Florida STEM Hub Board, which I've been invited to sit on with some Northeast Florida superintendents and the chairman of the State Board of Education, and we're going to look at infusing more STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, and medical at STEM squared. So they have 2 M's on the end of it there. But we'll be getting into that, seeing where that takes us further in our STEM activities. Last Friday, the Department of Education released some of our Florida State assessment scores. So we're cautiously optimistic. The rest of the story is in September. The governor and the commissioner are going to decide if that was even a valid test. But from initial results, our 3rd grade writing scores were out of the park. Ms. Cornegie, I think, briefed you last month that we had the lowest amount ever in Clay County of students needing to take remedial reading, summer reading camps over the summer out of 3rd graders based on our portfolio examination and our SAT-10 examination. Well, the exam they actually took first was the Florida State Assessment, and I think we got those results, well, last Friday, right? After school got out, so we're not quite in time enough to do us a whole lot of good. But there were only 6 counties with fewer kids in that lowest quintile. So you've heard me talk many times about the importance of getting students reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Those first couple years in primary, we're trying to get them to read. After that, they're reading to learn everything else they need to learn. Among children that are behind grade level reading at the end of grade 3, everything we don't want to happen for a student happens at a greater rate. Juvenile crime, teen pregnancy, drug usage, high school dropouts, all those things. It's just very hard to recover a kid. Not impossible, but very difficult. So I'm very proud of the work we've done in our elementary schools. We've done some very dynamic, very intentional instructional strategies with those primary kids. We've adopted new reading and writing curriculums. We have executed a lot of professional learning communities. We've put together 6 model schools, which some of you have toured in the elementary setting, so a teacher anywhere in Clay County can walk in a model school and see how it's done with a coach, and we can learn to be better at our craft, all of us, administrators, teachers, support staff, and we're doing that, and the kids, our students, are reaping those benefits, and those benefits showed up big time in our own diagnostics that we gave our third grade students and in the state. So just wanted to update you on those two things. And that's all, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Zant. Okay, the next item up is item D2, discuss and approve option for legal services. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon. Do I have
I'll
a second?
second.
And a second by Ms. Gilhausen. Okay, discussion. So basically, I put this item on the agenda because, as you all know, back in January, we hired Mr. Sykes as an interim attorney, and we did that with the agreement that he was going to provide for us, his analysis of what kind of would be a good model for us going forward. And so I asked for him to send us a letter, basically explaining what the different options were and what his opinion was. And this is basically what he shared at the June 8th meeting. So it was in the backup. I hope everybody had a chance to read through it. And I really just want to open the floor to have a discussion about what everybody feels. What are your thoughts? Just for the purpose of the public, the three options that were presented was option one, which is a full-time attorney. The second option was a part-time attorney that would be paid at an hourly rate. And then option three is a part-time attorney that is paid at a flat rate. So basically, what the hope here is that we'll have some discussion and then we'll move forward with one of those options. So I'll open it up for discussion.
Well, I guess my first reaction would be that I think that the most cost-effective way would be paid at an hourly rate, a part-time attorney paid at an hourly rate, and what I would envision from that is that it may not be the same attorney, and because what we've seen and what different people have sent comments through email and said here on the record and that kind of thing is that, and it's true, that we use a lot of different legal services and that are not all encompassed by one. And I do know there are some firms out there that offer a wide range of services. Now, whether that truly is more cost-effective, I don't know. It would be different than we've done in this district, but not different than some larger school districts do across the state.
And I'll just add to that. As I was reading through Mr. Sykes' analysis and recommendation, he also mentioned the part-time attorney paid at an hourly rate. And he makes a statement in here that he says a part-time attorney being paid on an hourly rate may at first blush look like a cost savings, but it's not. And he goes on to say that if you have a part-time attorney that you paid 15 hours a week at $125 an hour, that averages around $8,000 per month. And it could be much more depending on how much they're billing. What we're currently charging at a flat rate right now is, I believe it's about $7,500 a month. I actually took some notes, and I went through the legal fee analysis that Ms. Legutko put together for us. It was very lengthy because it had a lot of information that was requested by Ms. Karakis, and she had put a summary together of it. And I guess just my takeaway is that even with a full-time attorney, we still end up having to use outside counsel for various things. Okay. Yes, a full-time attorney, we did have a lot of services provided for us, but we still had to go and retain outside counsel for certain things like labor attorneys and, things like that. So we would still have to do that with a part-time attorney, whether we paid that part-time attorney hourly or whether we paid that part-time attorney at a flat rate. And so basically what I see when I kind of did the math, and I just took some notes down here, you know, I see a real significant savings with a part-time attorney at a flat rate, which comes out to be about, I would say, $90K a year. And you're still, on top of that, you would still have to pay the outside counsel. You'd still have to pay, you know, for like the workers' comp and labor laws and stuff like that. So I think the savings comes in the actual attorney that we're paying to represent the board or represent the district. Regardless of what model we choose, we're still going to have to use outside counsel for some of those other things. So that's my thought on it. And I'll just tell you, I think a part-time attorney at a flat rate is a good way to go. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the district. I think that, you know, I've heard comments that there really isn't enough work to keep a full-time attorney busy all the time if they're efficient. A part-time attorney who's very efficient can accomplish all of the things that we need them to accomplish. And so I think with that, that's where the savings comes in. So that's really where I stand. That would be my recommendation. And so that's the model that I tend to lean toward.
Do you want my opinion?
I just want to hear from everybody. The floor's open, so if we could just take each of us take a turn, yeah.
Well, I will. I'm glad you referenced the documentation that I requested. And I requested it for a reason, and I think I copied everybody on it so you're all aware of what I actually asked for. And you're all aware that we didn't receive everything I asked for. And I asked for a year's worth of detailed billing because I wanted to see the difference between a full-time attorney and the part-time attorney. How many phone calls were made, how many emails were made that had to be responded to outside counsel. And I don't feel that we have the correct information to move forward to really make an accurate decision based on full-time and part-time. So that's my first issue. I put it in writing as a public records request. I asked for it back in February, again in March. Finally got a response after this was sent. I sent another email stating this was not everything, which I copied all of you on, so you're all aware of what I actually asked for. I didn't ask for it to be difficult and to create more work. I asked for it so that we would have this information, so sitting here we would know, okay, our full-time attorney handled all the ESE calls. He handled all of the cases when there's a divorce situation going on at a school. They get these phone calls daily. You know, how many times did somebody have to reach out to a third party to get this done, where we're paying every 15 minutes? You know, we're paying in increments. So before I move forward with that, I would like the rest of that information. And I personally feel, with the list of duties that a full-time attorney does, I would rather have a full-time attorney here than a part-time. I realize, as Mr. Sykes said the last time, he is on call and he has taken phone calls, and some weeks it's 10 hours and other weeks it might be 30 hours. I understand that, and that's the beauty of the salary as opposed to an hourly. And I do realize that regardless of which we have, we still have to have the labor lawyer and we still have to have the workers' comp. So that's there either way.
Right.
So we really can just kind of take that off the table because either way we have to pay that. Those are two separate entities that are specialists in those areas that we have to have. So it's really the daily duties of a full-time attorney, and then the needs of our teachers, our principals. I'm looking at, you know, Ms. Roth thinking our ESC department, and I know they have a lot to handle. Having a child that had a learning disability, you know, if there were questions about our IEP, and she could call up and ask these questions to the attorney, and he was always available. If not, he got back to her. I know that there's been cases where there's students that have no guardianship, you know, and the attorney would get a call. And I remember Mr. Bickner saying this to me a couple of years ago, you know, getting a call about a student, and, you know, how do you handle that when they don't have a parent to register them in school because they're living with, you know, they're immigrants that have come here or whatever, and they're living with other people and there's not a legal guardian with them, and we still have to provide services. So there's a lot of issues, I think, that come up that, in my eyes, it would be safer for the district to have a full-time attorney. And again, Mr. Van Zant, I'm requesting the rest of the public records. You look terrible. Do you feel okay? Well, this is only going to add to it, sorry, but please forward the rest of the public records request to me with the detailed billing, the memos of understanding, and you can look at the email and get the rest to me. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I would just echo some of what's already been said, just that the cost savings analysis that I looked at, having a flat rate makes more sense. I think the model that we're working with now, Mr. Sykes has been on call. I know I've never waited longer than 24 hours for a response to an email or a phone call that I've made to him. I have gotten feedback from district staff, and they have been satisfied with the service that we've gotten. I understand you wanting to see more information, and I'm okay with waiting until we have those numbers to make a permanent decision. But we do need to figure out what we're going to do in the meantime, because his contract is going to expire. So
Right.
I feel like that's kind of the pressing issue tonight, is what are we going to do in the meantime? We don't have to decide necessarily the model right now, but that's my 2 cents.
Ms. Studdard?
Back, 15 years ago, the sitting school board, which included Mr. Van Zant and myself, determined that the district had reached the size that a part-time attorney, we had Frank Scrooby, and he had a practice in Orange Park, and he was the guru of Florida school law in the state of Florida. I mean, everybody, he had more in his head than probably is in this Florida school law book. He knew it. He was wonderful, and he could handle it. But he told us, you know, it's time. Back then, you know, we had about half the number of kids, of students in the schools, and so I just can't understand how, you know, 15 years later, I'm not sure what year it was we hired Mr. Bickner.
It was actually 2001.
2001, around
Yeah.
14 years ago. There's so much that goes on in a school district that it's difficult to think of everything that is done on a day-to-day basis. I know that these principals out here pick up the phone and they'll call. They've got a parent and they're not sure what to do. It's very easy to pick up that phone and call to make sure you're doing it the right way and know that you're getting the right advice to protect you. Things happen with our children. As Ms. Carrick, I think, said, Terry Roth and all of the ESE, there's numerous things that go on, and you have got to have someone paying attention who is well aware of the changing laws. I was very comfortable in knowing that with a full-time attorney that they were attending conferences of other school board attorneys around the state of Florida. There's a good bit of networking that goes on. I can't tell you the number of times that I would ask a question and an email would go out and you'd get responses, you know, from all over the state, because it's kind of like when we go to the Florida school board meetings. You've got a network, and no matter whether a district is large or small, there's the wealth of knowledge gained, because you can bet your boots that if something's happening here, chances are it's happened in several other counties also, and it gives you that advantage. I have sat through a multitude of mediations with the mediator and our former attorney. There's some things like that that if you constantly are having to farm out, so to speak, or outsource, you're paying for things that we're not going to think of everything sitting here tonight. I can assure you of that. But I've gone through and tried to list everything I could think of that they do, whether it be photography at a high school, or a religious something, or surrogate parent, and what do you know, the poor principal, what do you do? And you don't need to know that, well, if I could put this off until Thursday or Friday, because right now we've got an active attorney Thursdays and Fridays, and I guess in the summertime, I don't know if that's just Thursday, I don't know. But 2 days a week, I'm not comfortable with. I'm also not comfortable with having an attorney who's not really versed on school board education law. No one knows it when they come into the job, for sure. It's a strange animal. It's different than estate planning lawyers or whatever.
Yeah, if I could just add something. So regardless of what we do, we would have to advertise a position, right? We'd have to advertise that. So I think to the point of, and I understand your point about, there's a lot to learn when you come into this, but that would be said of anybody. Isn't that correct? I mean, I read Mr. Scrooby's resignation letter, and at the time that Mr. Bickner was hired, he didn't know it either. And again, Mr. Scrooby said that he was learning, and so that would be a case with anybody. So I agree with you, and what I'm saying is that we would advertise that, and we would, obviously interview for the best. We would be looking for somebody that had some of that experience. So
may I finish?
Yeah, you can go ahead and finish now.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Some counties do have, they'll hire like an outside firm.
Mm-hmm.
Fine and good. Mr. Brodsky, when he sits in Ms. McCabe's chair in a few days, or maybe you already are, I don't know. It's easy to pick up the phone and call this company and talk to this guy. And every minute you speak to him, you're paying for it. I cannot tell you the number of times, and I bet Ms. McCabe would verify this, that she could go from her desk across the hall and ask a question and save a phone call. You could. It's sometimes a savings is not what it looks like. From what I have experienced, I believe that by the time you pay an outside attorney, we're already paying for workers' comp. We've always done that. Our labor, fine. Right now, when we had a full-time attorney, when we would get a lawsuit against us, Mr. Bickner would handle it, and it was things, someone's fallen, and I went to a lot of those mediations, or hearings, mediations, things that he did it, and it was with his salary. It's easy to say, look at what he was making, but we were getting a lot of value for that because we were not having to outsource a lot of the work that he was doing. Plus, what I liked is he was here every day, and if Mr. Umball sitting back there in the back all of a sudden had a problem, I know he can get a hold of that attorney and get some legal action, because sometimes things have to be done fast. I want to know that we have someone who has the time to get versed on education law and make it the priority, as Mr. Bickner did. He had a lot to learn. Nobody would know what Mr. Scrooby knew, I'm telling you. But it's just like when you first get on the school board, the first year, maybe you don't see it right now, but it's a learning experience. And even the second year, it takes a while to kind of get in the swing of things and see how things work in the law. I am deathly afraid of us short-sighting our students and our employees, saying that we're going to save a few dollars, which in my mind I'm not sure about. I'm not convinced that it'll save in the long run. But the most important thing to me is to know that this school district has the very best legal opinions and advice that we can get, and that if our attorney says it, that I can rely on it and know that it's been researched and that it is the way it is. We have been advised before on things, and we followed the advice, and we have won in court over it because we had good legal advice. Don't shortchange our school district thinking, well, hey, they can come in a couple days a week and take care of everything that needs to be done. I don't believe that. But anyway, but that's how I feel. I think we certainly need a full-time attorney, and I certainly think that we should interview, as we did before in the year 2000 or 2001, whenever it was. We went and did very in-depth interviews, and we found the person we thought that would be a good fit for this county. So that's my feelings.
Okay, let me throw this. Okay, actually, Ms. Condon wanted to go first.
It just has to do with what she just said.
Okay, well,
How many applicants did you interview?
Oh, I think we screened it down. Mr. Fazant, you help me on this. I think we interviewed maybe 5. I would.
Interviewed 5. But
I don't
how many
remember how
applicants
many
did you
applicants
get?
actually came in, because the thing is, you've got to understand too, for someone to come in to be a full-time school board attorney, like Mr. Bickner had a practice in Orange Park. He closed down his practice to come to work for us. That was something. Mr. Scrooby he had his own practice up there, and he handled it. He was back and forth. But to get a full-time attorney, you're going to have someone who, you're going to have to find that person who is in a position where they can undo whatever they're doing now and come in and be our school board attorney. But I think once you get the applications and you get it down to the top 4 or 5, or however many look good, after talking to them, I think we had a very good consensus on the board. We knew where we wanted to, we knew the right fit.
okay. So, okay, Ms. Condon, you had something you wanted to say. And then I just want to sort of direct this conversation to where I think we need to go based on what everybody's had to say.
I was going to say that you said about 90,000 for part-time services, and I guess it just occurred to me.
Well, let me clarify that. So the way that it comes out right now we're paying a part-time attorney who's basically handling everything that we need handled, and we're paying that person $6K per month, which comes out to $72K per year. We're paying a paralegal, in addition to that, $18K per year, which totals $90,000 a year. Okay, so that's for both the part-time attorney, and that's a flat rate. And so, however we decide, if that's the way that we want to go, however we decide, now just keep in mind that a part-time hourly attorney would come out with a paralegal, would come out to be about $96K a year. Okay, and then the full-time attorney, when you had the salary of the full-time attorney and then the salary of that attorney's paralegal, that was significantly more. That was upward of, I want to say, almost. It was 230,000. Yeah. So it's significantly more.
That's including benefits.
That's including benefits and all that other stuff. Correct. So. And then even with the full-time attorney, so you're looking at 230,000 as opposed to 90K, and then you're still paying for the outside counsel and stuff for those other various things. So all I wanted to say was, just to clarify, that was.
Because what I was going to say is that I don't know that those numbers are set in stone.
No.
And I think our administrators got very creative when they combined positions and eliminated positions to get efficient. And so what if we got creative with ours and said 90,000 is what we have to pay, and if you want to pay a paralegal part of that money, that's your choice, but we have 90,000 to pay. And we had someone, and I just really don't recall, but I felt like someone spoke to us at a meeting in the past few months that said there are a lot of unemployed attorneys out there, and there are a lot of young attorneys graduating from law school and looking for jobs. And maybe there is another Mr. Bickner from 15 years ago that wants to get into school law, and I just don't know that we should limit ourselves to, if we could pay a part-time attorney at a flat rate, $90,000 a year, then, or we could have a full-time attorney at $90,000 a year. Well, then the school district would be better served because those, the superintendent has things that he might need from an attorney, the staff, as others have mentioned. And I guess I just wonder, if we cast the net out there, do we have to decide tonight, or could we put out, is there a way to advertise and ask interested parties, you come to us and you tell us, this is what we have to pay. You tell us what we can get for that, and then we choose the best solution. I guess I don't know that we don't, to Mrs. Carrick's point, we don't know enough to know. And I think, because I think that both sides are valid. I think that, and I'll tell you one reason that the part-time paid at an hourly rate appeals to me is because I think it's important that wherever we go with an attorney, and Mr. Sykes, I appreciate all the work that you've done for us, so please don't take this personally. You have been very forthcoming with me and answered my questions. But I feel like we need to find some way to find common ground and move forward. And the attorney should be something that all of us, or someone that all of us can trust, and all of us can build a relationship with, that is not divisive. And so that's why that's attractive to me, because if you have to call other people, then you don't necessarily have the same person answering questions, and there may not be a potential in the small communities we live in that someone knows someone or is related to someone or that kind of thing. Certainly, I am not saying that in our past attorneys or in our current attorney that anyone has not acted professionally. I'm just saying that I really desire that we have that moving forward. And again, that it's kind of attractive to think about a young attorney learning school law, and I understand there's some risks to that as well that they may not know. But if you to Mrs. Studdard's point, if you have some time to learn school law, and so much of their the letters and things that she was talking about are available on the internet, and we certainly have some great administrative help within the district. Is a paralegal really necessary to pay? And if we just can't afford it, we can't afford it. But
yeah, I won't answer to the paralegal question, because that is really something that I think that the attorney has to decide. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to choose an option, option 1, option 2, option 3. Now, I just want to say that there are 2 other items after this, depending on what option that we choose or what we vote on, or if we decide, that we want to do something different, But there are 2 other items right behind this one. The second one would be, depending on whatever comes out of this motion, the second one would be to authorize advertisement of such legal services, whatever option we decided. And then the last one would be authorization to continue the current legal services until the board takes further action. So depending on what we want to do here, there are still we have some options, I think, on the table. So what I've heard is, I've heard everybody's opinion. We've got a couple folks that like the part-time attorney paid at a flat rate. Ms. Condon likes the part-time attorney paid at an hourly rate. And we got a couple folks that are obviously for a full-time attorney. And then I've heard comments that we still don't think we have all the information that we need. So what we could do, and I don't know if this would require an amendment to the motion, but what we could do is we could either table this item and call for a workshop where we can get more detailed information and we can have more time, or whatever, to really look into it and really decide. And then with that, obviously if we decided to do that, then we would have to really act upon the next item, which would be to authorize the continuation of the current legal services until we do that. So there's a couple things, that we can do. So,
Ms. McKinnon?
Yes.
As far as the salary goes, is that part of the salary schedule that's already set, or do we determine that?
That's a really good question. Mr. Van Zandt, could you speak to that?
The only way we've done attorney services is just on a straight-up contract. There's not on our existing administrative or any other salary schedule, a salary schedule for an attorney. If you decided you wanted a full-time attorney, you could say we're going to pay a full-time, a director's salary, a assistant superintendent's salary. You could do something like that and offer it as a job, basically add a position to the team, so to speak.
Madam Chairman, let him finish.
If I'm trying to understand what Ms. Condon just articulated, are you saying you would like to put a figure, say $90,000 for the sake of argument, and say somebody's willing to bid on that job and say, I'm going to do everything it takes to provide all the legal services you want for that flat rate as a full-time, a part-time, or whatever it takes? Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to help you all get to some point where somebody can make a motion, because you've moved the item, but you really didn't move a particular option. So I think at some point, somebody could move one of the three items in particular, or they could amend that motion and say, hey, for $90,000 or $100,000 a year, you got to do all this stuff. You bid on the contract, and it's just like any other contract. We tell somebody you got to build this 50,000 square foot building, and we're going to do design bid, and you're going to bid on the job, and you're going to build it for this much, and that's it. So you could make some kind of motion if you didn't like any of these three options and you wanted to act tonight. I'm not suggesting you should or you shouldn't. You could say for X amount of dollars, draft up the advertisement of the services required, and somebody can bid on that job for 6 months or a year, whatever y'all want to do. I would suggest at least a year. I don't think it would be attractive if it was real short-term kind of thing. And the only other thing I would just, I've heard numbers talked about a lot tonight, and I've heard ESE mentioned a few times. I hate to put her on the spot, but Ms. Roth is here. If you wanted her to address the ESE services now versus in years past, and getting kind of input from her, and Ms. Legutko has this, all these dollar figures broken down.
Okay, yeah, I would like to hear from Mrs.
Before you get to that, may
Yes.
I clarify something for
Yes.
Ms. Gilhousen?
Go ahead.
The school board attorney is hired by the school board. It is the only employee that the five of us hire. It doesn't have anything to do with the salary schedule and all that. This is the school board attorney. He doesn't, if there's ever litigation between us and the superintendent goes and gets him an attorney, because that's our school board attorney. So it's totally within our purview. It's the only one that we hire.
I understand
Okay.
that completely. I just was curious, we have a very detailed salary schedule, and I didn't want us to,
Right.
break any sort of,
Right.
rules that we have about how salaries are decided. I think when you get into,
It's whatever we negotiate.
right, I understand that. I understand how it works.
Okay, Mrs. Roth, would you like to come?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I've worked with both Mr. Bickner and Mr. Sykes. I will say that Mr. Sykes has made himself available to me and my department. He has attended IEP meetings at my request. He reviews the many contracts. I know you see them all across your desk, so you know there's a lot of them that we require in ESE and student services. He has responded to emails and phone calls and from me to him in a very timely manner. We've worked very hard in Clay County to avoid court cases for students with disabilities, so this is an area in which we haven't delved into, but he's been very responsive, and his paralegal has also been responsive to me when we've had to touch base with his office. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but we certainly have, I don't feel like we have had a big gap in services, that when I've needed supports, he's certainly been available and has been helpful.
Okay, so the amount, obviously, I would just say, like, the volume of work that you have hasn't changed, and from before when we had a full-time attorney to now, so the amount of workload hasn't changed from your perspective, and you're saying that you get the same level of service today with the part-time attorney that you had before with the full-time attorney?
We have the same volume. If anything, we have more
Okay.
because we're special ed and we just keep growing. But we certainly have the same level of responsiveness from Mr. Sykes as we have had in the past.
Okay,
Wow.
great, thank you.
I find that so hard to believe. Not that I don't believe you, but I would think all the many things that arise, that come up, that you would have many instances where you have to call down and say, we need answers right now. And if a part-time attorney is not in, only 2 days a week, are you having to wait for a response?
I find that my responses to almost anybody are within 24 hours, and Mr. Sykes' office has not been any different. We did have a situation where I had to know something right then, and we called his office in his physical location and spoke with his paralegal, and we got an answer right away. So, not from the paralegal, but from Mr. Sykes. So we do have some time-sensitive issues. Most of the things that we deal with, we do have a little bit of a window. Sometimes we do have to have things right away, and he's allowed me to cyber stalk him or text him. I'm being figurative, not literal when I say that, lest you misunderstand. But we have had good supports from Mr. Sykes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you say that Ms. Legutko had?
I've heard y'all kind of go back and forth on you do or don't believe numbers, but numbers are pretty hard to pass, and she's really good at them. So if you
Yeah.
have a question, ask her.
Does anybody have any questions regarding numbers?
Not until I get the rest of the backup.
And if I
Okay.
could, let me go ahead and address that. The last email where you requested legal, whatever, detailed billing, Mr. Sykes responded to you, and I don't have a better response than the one he gave you. If you'd like to sit down and discuss it, we can certainly do it. I don't think this is the forum.
Well,
The information that we gave you and the rest of the board took Ms. Legutko about an entire week to comb through and grab. It's not a it's not a quick little bit of pick up this receipt, pick up that receipt, and then we have to disaggregate it and see what we can release publicly. So, if you're asking for a public records request at this point, unless the board demands more than back to April or May of 14, I'm going to put that, I'm going to start the ticker because you're taking valuable time that doesn't lead to value.
what I asked for, Mr. Van Zant, was just the detailed billing that you received from the attorney's office that would show, phone call on such and such date. And we've seen it before when it was requested a few years ago for the legal services for.
And if you'd like to come
labor.
sit down
That's
so we
what
don't
I'd
have
like
to
to
black all that out, you can go through every file we
There's
have.
not a thing on it that should have to be blacked out.
Hold on. I believe Mr. Sykes has something he wants to add to that.
If the question is my billing records, I don't bill, I do a monthly bill to Nancy Racine, and it's a flat rate bill.
No,
And so I do not keep a record of day-to-day, nor is a record day-to-day required of the phone calls and conversations that I have throughout the day. It's not required, and I don't keep those records. And I doubt prior counsel kept those records. It's not something, and everybody that I know that works on a flat rate or on a full-time rate as governmental attorneys, I don't know anybody that keeps those day-to-day records.
Mr.
Insofar
Sykes.
as the issue regarding, say, Mr. Schrader, who does the insurance defense, and the labor law attorneys, and their phone calls and their detailed billing, such detailed billing would entail the release of attorney-client privilege communication. And as I outlined in the email to the board, if you want that kind of detailed billing from an hourly basis from that lawyer, that is a matter that is covered by attorney-client privilege communication. Mr. Van Zant can't disclose that. I can't disclose that. Ms. Legutko can't disclose that. The only person or entity that can vote to release that kind of detailed record, because it's not covered by Chapter 119. The only entity that can authorize the release of such detailed billing records would be the board, the 5 of you. And you would have to hold a vote to release those detailed records. And once you release those detailed records, then you've given up attorney-client privilege communication, and then what happens, the opposing counsel can in all those cases has the opportunity under the Sunshine Law to take a look at the billing records and know exactly what your attorney is doing to defend the case. And then you expose yourself to liability. So if the board wants to vote to release those attorney-client privileged communications that gives away your lawyer's thought process, that is well within your ability to do that. I can't release those records. Mr. Van Zandt can't release those records. Ms. Legutko can't. But the 5 of you can, if you choose to.
Let me ask you a question. Did I read, was I correct at what I read in the response regarding that if Mrs. Karakis or one of the board members wanted to see those, that we could see them if we came in one by one and we could see the...
Absolutely.
But we just can't release them.
You can't copy them out there, because once they're copied, then they're sent out and to be released
Right,
wherever.
and then they're a public record.
Then they're a public record. But if what you want to do is, let's say you want to go in and you want to make an appointment and take a look at I don't know exactly what billing records Ms. Legutko has, but I mean, depending on how deep you want to get into the weeds, you can go out to Boyd Generette or whoever, our labor law attorney, and look at their detailed billing records. Each member of the board would have the ability to go look at that, and if there's something specific that you want to have released because you think it's out of line, then you take that and you bring it to, and you ask that to be agended, and the board votes on it, and it's released.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
May I speak?
Yeah.
Okay. I was not asking about Mr. Sykes' daily schedule. I was not asking for a detailed billing on anything to do with Mr. Sykes. I realize that he's on salary and that I was not asking for him to account for his time, so he must have misread the email. What I asked for was the detailed billing, which if Boyd and Generette sends a bill to Clay County School System, it's not going to have any client attorney privileged information in there. It's going to have down an example. August 1st, 2014, phone call, whoever, 15 minutes. Return
And then
email.
the charge
That
associated with
is
that,
the
right?
detailed billing that I asked for, which is not attorney-client work privilege or attorney product. It is not. That is what I want to see. I want to see, when we had a full-time attorney, how many times did he have to use the outside third party for whatever, and it's not going to have any detailed information about the work product.
If I may.
They can't release that information.
Who an attorney is talking to, interviewing, the witnesses they're talking to,
I'm
those all
sorry.
give up, those are all part of the attorney-client privilege communication. If I call up certain persons that are potentially witnesses, there are witnesses that I have to disclose. There are witnesses that I don't have to disclose. If I give up in a phone call that I'm calling up somebody, consulting them on a case, and I have that name of that person, and that is only a consulting expert, not a testifying expert, if I've given up that phone call, then you've then notified who that person is going to be, that's your consulting expert. You're not required to do that. So there is, in who you're calling and what you're talking about does entail attorney-client privilege communication.
Okay. I think for the sake of moving along,
We're getting
because
nowhere
we're kind of
with
getting
this.
off, we're
Absolutely.
getting off track. Okay. So
Let's get back to
yeah,
this.
yeah. Let's get back to this. So we basically have a motion and a second on the board to decide on one of these options, or if somebody would like, we could amend the motion and do a different option. So
If I might,
yes, Ms. Gilhausen.
it's, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think that maybe a good middle ground would be that we send out an RFP for a full-time attorney at the $90,000 or $100,000 if we want to go with an administrative salary schedule. That way we're getting the full-time services that you all are nervous about giving up, and we still stick to what has worked in our budget thus far.
Well, may I say something? This would be the one time, I agree with you, I think it's important to have the full-time attorney. I've explained why. I mean, there's a list of things that they deal with. But I don't know, will we be able to retain somebody at $100,000?
Yeah.
I mean, these
Well,
are
we don't-
professionals.
So if we don't know till we try. And I think that we owe it to our district. We've asked everyone to tighten their belts. We've asked everyone to be creative. And I just, it frustrates me if we don't know if someone might be out there. We don't know, and someone might come back to us and say, look, I can't give you full-time, but I have X years in school board law, and I'm moving here from wherever. And so maybe someone new has come in, and they have some experience. And so it just seems to me, why would we cut ourselves short? If we would be willing to do part-time attorney at a flat rate or full-time attorney, it seems to me you could get a lot more for the same amount of money, but we don't know that. Now, it may come back and we may get some resumes with no experience and no one willing to do it, and then we have to come back and have another discussion.
I
but
thought we need to put a reasonable salary.
Probably
Yeah,
one.
I was going to say, there's
Put a
nothing that says
salary
we have to
range.
do the 90,000. Maybe we go with a range. And
I think a
and we can
salary
discuss
range.
that in the next item, however we decide to go. So, again, there's nothing that says we have to stick to 90,000. There's nothing,
And the range could be based on experience.
range could be based on experience, that's correct. So we could interview some people, and then we could, make them an offer, I guess, or, we can decide how that process is going to go. So, okay, here's how I'm going to do this. We have three options. What I'll do is, we have a motion and a second.
What's the motion?
The
motion
didn't say
was-
anything.
If we don't have a motion that says anything.
It just,
Right, it was a motion to
discuss
bring
and
it up so we
approve.
could discuss
We
it,
don't
right?
even really
And I
have a
got to
motion.
tell you, I can't vote because it matters. So if we,
What do you,
You kind of have
because
to vote.
because the two of you are
One way or
telling
the
me
other.
that but the two of you are saying that that I'm completely unreasonable with saying that an attorney asking for an attorney at $90,000 a year is that we'll never get it. And I'm not sure I would agree to it at $125,000 a year, but I might agree at 90. And I guess I just feel like we don't know. We don't know and I'm not, and I'm guilty of this too. None of us have come back and said, this is the salary ranges that attorneys' jobs, school attorney jobs across the state are advertised at. We don't know that. I don't know. I feel very uncomfortable because, again, for the third or fourth time, we've asked our district to tighten our belts, and I feel like we need to too. And I know no one else is saying that we shouldn't, but I don't know that I can say pick one tonight.
Well,
Okay.
I can say certainly we need to pick a full-time attorney. I feel so strongly that that's the model we need to go with. So we need to just collaboratively come up with an amount or a range that we're all comfortable with.
I don't think the range has to be decided right this minute.
no, I don't think so either.
that you've got, the only thing you've got to decide tonight is, do you want to
Right.
keep a full-time attorney, or do you want to go to a part-time?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you decide to go part-time, then you got to decide if you want it flat rate or salary.
Okay.
Let's keep it down, use a KISS method.
I would like to table this discussion until we can have a comparative.
A good comparative analysis.
mhm.
Okay, so we'll need a motion for that.
I'll move that we table this item.
Okay, I have a motion to table this item
I'll second it.
and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor to table this item, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so I'm going to make a recommendation then, at a consensus of the board, that we schedule a workshop meeting for, I would say next month in July. We need to act pretty quickly. Okay, so with that,
Can
since
I
we...
say to that, Mrs. McKinnon, that
Yeah.
we already have 2 meetings on the July agenda because of the budget.
Should we add it to one of
Yeah, I think we can probably look at adding it to one of those. Would that be fair? Okay. All right, so with that, so item 2 has been tabled. We don't need to take up item 3, so do we just strike it? Okay, so item D3 will be stricken. And then we do need to act on item D4, which is authorized to continue current legal services until the board takes further action. So I'll entertain a motion on that.
I move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Any other discussion?
I just want to say this. I am, we're kind of in an awkward position because this contract ends the end of this month. I am very nervous about our legal situation right now. I don't want to have the district not have some sort of legal counsel, but I am not happy at all, and I'll be right up front about it. It's nothing personal. We're about 4th or 5th cousins. We're not kissing cousins, though, that's for sure. But we have been given incorrect legal advice, and I am deathly afraid for the legal health of this district. So it, I don't know what to do,
Mrs.
except that
Stutter?
we've got what we've got right now, but too many times we have been told things that were wrong.
Mrs.
And-
Stutter, there's no substantiation to that, and I don't think that's appropriate for this discussion, okay? So
Ms.
we have
McKinnon?
Mrs. Stutter, we have a motion on the
Yeah.
table right now
Okay.
to act upon this item, and if you want to have a private discussion with Mr. Sykes regarding how you feel about his service, you
but
can
now,
have that.
let me say this before you vote, Madam Chairman. I do have a right to speak as an elected official and
Yes,
a board
you do.
member, and to tell me that I have no verification, you can turn on the BCC meetings, you can turn on the Clay County School Board meetings. It is on video. So if you would like to know what has been told to us wrong, number one, the attorney-client session that we were called into is absolutely illegal to have staff members sitting in the client session, and then the meeting wasn't even advertised. That's one thing.
Mrs.
I can
Stutter,
go
okay.
on, but you don't want me to.
I am not going to have that discussion here. We are on a motion, okay? So without further discussion, all those in favor of item D4, authorization to continue current legal services until the board takes further action, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
Nope.
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Mrs. Karakis and Ms. Stutter dissenting. Okay.
Did we want to discuss the workshop, which date?
The date.
Yes, let's go ahead and get your calendar. You know what, let's do that when we get to the school board request. We'll do that at the end, okay? Don't let me forget. Okay, I do want to move on. The next item is item C4, which is Human Resources Personnel Consent Agenda. This item was pulled by Ms. Karakis. I do not have any cards on this, so I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Okay, discussion. Ms. Karakis.
I pulled this. I don't agree with the 4 new positions that have been created that we had a workshop on. I don't agree with the allocation for the district staff coming to a special meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. I pulled it for that reason because I think it's great that we're trying to conserve everywhere we can, but then we turn around and we've inflated several positions, director to assistant superintendent and several others, and I don't agree with any of that. And I think if we're going to save money, let's save all of it. And the one thing I do agree with spending it on is the legal services, because that to me is crucial. So I pulled this just because I want to voice my opinion on how opposed to it I am. And I don't think this should have been brought to a special meeting at all. The district allocations should have come to a general meeting, and I think you all know I feel that way about it. I've certainly been vocal about that, so that's why I pulled it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
No?
No.
Motion carries 3-2 with Ms. Karakis and Ms. Stutter dissenting. Okay, the next item on the agenda is another item that was pulled from the consent agenda, item C5. And this is the 15-16 administrative salary schedule tables. This was pulled by Ms. Studdard. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Gilhousen. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
I have a second by Ms. Condon. Okay, discussion. Ms. Studdard.
Yeah, I mainly pulled this so that it would give the opportunity to have some discussion on the board. I was looking at this salary schedule, and I realized that, you know, many of the positions on here are not positions that there will be some that there's not even allocations for, but it's kind of holding a spot should we decide to do an allocation for that position. But in thinking about it, I remembered back probably, I think, Ms. McCabe, when we talked today, it was around the early 90s, there was a study done, and you said it was primarily for support employees, the Ernst & Young study. But I guess what made me want to see how y'all felt about it is at one of the meetings that we had, I think Ms. Cornegay and Mr. Van Zandt and some of the other staff was there, and we were just talking about the different positions. You know, in my mind, we go director, supervisor, coordinator, and then some of them have 1s, 2s, and 3s in there, and that's kind of in your mind. You kind of know what the pecking order is, but something was said about one of the supervisors made the same salary as a director, and I don't remember if it was 2s, 3s, or 1s, and I remember saying to Ms. Cornegay that day, that doesn't sound right, that you've got a supervisor making the exact same thing that a director is. And I said, you know, we're getting out of whack here on the salary schedule. And so today I talked to Ms. McCabe, and I said, you know, how long has it been? And she said, well, you know, back when Mr. Owens was superintendent, that would have been 94. Was he in 2 terms? Was he in 2 terms? 3? So from 94 for the next 12 years, he had said, you know, that probably needs to be addressed, but somehow, you know, you just never get to it. But I don't know that it needs tweaking now, but I wanted to see what y'all thought about it. If you've actually got supervisors making the same thing as directors, maybe we need to go back and do a salary study and just kind of make sure that we have things in the proper order and where it should be. The other thing that kind of hit me is I remembered, I don't know if it was a month or 2 months or 3 months ago, that when Ms. Butler came up to the board, and I think she gave us a chart, but I'm not... Did you give us all a chart that night? Yeah, okay. But remember when she was talking about statewide, you know, our teachers are paid in the lower part. The school administrators were kind of in the middle with the state. And I think you said, was it the district administrators were way up high? And that, plus what Ms. Cornegay said, plus knowing that in my 22.5 years, we've never really looked at it, I thought, you know, if y'all are interested, I would like to have, over the next few months, have a chance to look at this. One thing I forgot to ask Ms. McCabe through the chair, all right, if we approve this tonight, is it in stone then until this time next year? Or how could we do it and still leave us some room to look at it?
The table that you're mentioning that talks about the pay grade and the salary schedule titles and so forth, that's all set in stone. What you're voting on tonight is really the work that you did at the job description review, as well as, you know, your allocation work. And as you mentioned, everything listed there is not necessarily allocated. If the board wanted to do a salary study, again, that's something that we just haven't done administratively in a long time. We could look to do that.
But how would, I guess what I'm saying is, how could that fit in with what we've already done?
Currently, this would be status quo. The study would be recommendations that would come later for you to adopt as a school board.
Yeah. That might make sense, though, given that Mr. Broski's just, you know, green in that position, get his feet wet, and then if we wanted to act next year.
You know, we could give him something to do in his spare time.
Made me nervous years ago, and Mr. Owens, I think, suggested it my first year, so it's just in keeping with first year.
I saw the blood draining out of your face, Mr. Broski. But, you know, I was just thinking about that, and I didn't know if anybody was interested, but we've never done it, and I thought it's probably long overdue if David Owens said it back when he was superintendent, and it still hadn't been done, and here we are at 2015. It's probably time, but is that a... You know, I just wanted to see if y'all would agree to it.
You'll find there's a cost associated with it, so what we could do in Human Resources is run that down and research what the cost would be.
Yeah, we don't want to spend a whole lot of money.
What does that process look like, Ms. McCabe, if you don't mind me asking her that? What does that process look like?
We would use an outside organization, and I suggested that we talk to the FADS or the Florida School Board Association and find out.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to spend
I'm certainly,
$1 jillion, but I think we can do something
Yeah.
within reason. And there was one other part to this that I had a question about, and I still don't have a good answer because nobody really seems to have an answer for this, is it just, in all the years, I've never noticed it before, but on the page where it talks about supplements, let me find it real quick. It says that it's talking about the supplements to the base salary for school administrators. They're all going to kill me for saying this. But it says supplements are stated in terms of the base of $38,500. And I thought, I called Ms. McCabe and I said, why is it $38,500? Why not $37,000, $39,000? What is the magic about $38,500? And what was the answer?
The 38.5 is not just based on supplements. It's part of the formula when you take a look at the indices and
Right.
you're trying to figure out the total cost. I think it is relatively arbitrary in terms of the formula as far as when you place someone on the teacher salary schedule. Let's say a teacher leader becomes, an assistant principal. Then I think years ago when they set the structure, they needed a formula, and 38.5 just became the
norm.
base. Yeah, in order to see that if you became a school-based assistant principal, for example, that there was a promotion, a ladder to that, if you will.
Okay.
Because the reason I wondered is I knew that the teachers, their supplements in the school, they're based on $35,000. And I thought, well, why are the administrators based on $38,500? I just didn't know the answer. It was something I had never picked up on. But
Seems like it should be the same.
So I think that's something that, if we go out and do a study, I think that's probably something that would be looked at as well. So, okay. So I guess we go ahead and ask the HR team to maybe look at what that cost would be, and then maybe bring us something back via a recommendation or something through the superintendent.
Sure. Maybe at next month's meeting.
Yeah, maybe at next month's meeting. Is that?
Bring us back some information.
Just some information on cost and process and.
I'll be happy to look into the process and what it may cost. And maybe it's because I have a sinus infection tonight. I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, but here's what I believe. This is just Charlie's prediction. You take it for what it's worth. You're going to find out that our district office staff is quite a bit smaller than it used to be. You're going to find out that there's so many more items that we ask our school-based administrators to do than their job descriptions entail. And what the legislature has put on the backs of the district, and what your union tells you, well, support people, teachers aren't going to do those things, it's got to be somebody else. We'll go through this process, we'll pay whatever the fee is if you guys direct me to spend 10 or 20 grand, whatever Ernst & Young, and I have no idea what it might cost. And then you're going to find out that the job descriptions and the duty descriptions for all our administrators far exceed the amount that we're compensating them. And then you're going to come back and look at me and you're going to say, well, we need to pay them more, and where's our fund balance? This year, I don't see a natural end. I see administrators saying, go, let's get a raise, and then I'm going to say, Anyway, those are just my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I think the thing that brought concern to me was that chart that Ms. Butler showed us. It just, I think we owe it to our employees and to the taxpayers to make sure we're being efficient.
And I think in that same light, is would be to see, are they being paid more because they're the ones, no offense intended, but that have spent so much time in the district that if you've been here, Mrs. Adams used to say that she'd been here, so that's why her salary was higher versus less time. So I don't know. That would be interesting to know in the same study.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't ever hurt.
All right. So we have a motion and ooh, bless you. Have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Karakis dissenting. Okay.
I'm still opposing those job descriptions.
Okay. Okay, the next item is item D5, which is Human Resources Special Action A. I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Studdard
Second.
and a second by Ms. Condon. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay.
Has anything popped up on your screens?
Yeah, we didn't get anything on the screen. I'm sure she's captured it. Okay. All right, the next item up is D6, is a public hearing to approve as advertised School Board Policy 5.02G, Business Affairs, Electronic Funds Transfer Policy. At this time, I will open the public hearing for public comment. Is there anybody that would like to speak to this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion for approval by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Yay. Okay, the next item is item C35. This was pulled from the consent agenda, and before we take this up, we have a number of yellow cards, so I want to make sure I get it in the right order. All right, the first person that would like to speak is Mr. Keith Nichols. Mr. Nichols. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
My
you.
name is Keith Nichols, and my address is on the card. This item was brought to the board once before. At the regular meeting on September 19, 2013, it died without a vote due to a lack of a motion. In all fairness, Ms. Graham moved to approve, and Ms. McCann provided a second. Then, after a lengthy discussion, Ms. McCann withdrew her second, and the motion died. I mention this because except for the financial fortunes of the district and the lease terms being more costly today, nothing has changed on this proposal. The concerns that made this a bad deal in 2013 make it an equally bad deal in 2015. One of the benefits Mr. Warnberg cites is the ability for parents to have a real-time view of bus locations. If you look at the lease agreement and you notice that the parental portal not only is not operational, but not part of the lease agreement. Another concern you should have noticed on the lease is that system maintenance is our responsibility. Indeed, installation is 100% our responsibility, and our techs will not even be receiving training for installation or maintenance. We are already straining our maintenance personnel to the limit. To hand them another system to maintain without any training shows a fundamental lack of understanding on the part of the people pushing this system. In his previous presentation, he suggested that he would be able to reduce driver's hours by an average of 18 hours per year. So let's assume all 240 systems are used. In other words, let's assume 240 drivers. This will result in a savings of 4,320 hours per year. If every driver was at the top of the pay scale, this would provide a savings of $101,866 per year. When you look at the lease, you'll notice that it's $129,744 per year. If you do the math, you would be spending almost $28,000 a year more than you would save, and that is calculated with 240 drivers at the top of the pay scale. I'm sure everyone here is intelligent enough to know we don't actually have 240 drivers, and as many times as I have shared pay stubs of myself and others, I'm sure we all know that very few are actually at the top of the pay scale. In fact, I would think most of our drivers are below the median on the pay scale, which would be around step 13. Overstating the benefits and misrepresenting the cost of this request should be raising some red flags right about now. Please keep in mind what I've told you all today and in the past. There are much better ways to use this money. In the past, I've mentioned stop arm cameras, a system that will directly impact the safety of our students. We could also think of lifting some of the burdens from our staff that are currently below the federal poverty level. It was a bad deal in 2013. It's a bad idea today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Okay, our next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Smith.
My name is Rebecca Smith. I live at 25 Bitterroot Avenue in Middleburg, Florida. I am also a school bus driver. I work for the county. And I'm concerned about the cost of this thing. I have a question. I don't know if you have an answer to it, but my understanding, and maybe Mr. Warnberg could help me with this, I have been told that we're leasing the GPSs, but however, there's a cost. We have to maintain them. Plus, I heard that the Verizon is going to be operated by Verizon, and I've heard that that cost I haven't seen. Is that part of the lease? Oh, it is? Okay. Well, that's good. I'm just concerned about the safety. The way that it was described to me is that it would help us out on our FEFP reports, where the kids will scan their cards. But however, we know that students today are asking me repeatedly, do you have a pencil? So it doesn't mean that they're going to bring their student ID with them every day. So then I was told, well, they can key in the information or student ID, but then some of them can't remember their address, so how are they going to put in their student ID numbers? Then I'm told, well, the administrators at the school would come on and input that in to the system. Well, you know, I think that's kind of unreasonable, because I'm sure you got some administrators here today who are going to say, hey, I don't want to do that. So I've got some concerns about that. We're stopped at a bus stop. We've got kids getting on the bus. We've got a semi bearing down on our rump behind the bus, and we're wondering, well, is he going to go drive through, or what's going on that? Meanwhile, I've got kids trying to input this information in, and I just think it's a real big safety issue there. I've not totally sold on this idea because of the safety situation. I do think that we do need air conditioners for the buses, even though I got an air-conditioned bus, thank God, because I drive ESC. But there's others that's not. Now, today it got up to 101 degrees. Now, can you imagine this this metal box closed up? You get on and you let the windows down, but guess what? You got hot air blowing in on you, okay? It doesn't cool it down that much. So, I mean, I think there's other ways we could spend some money. Stop arm cameras would be great. I cannot begin to tell you how many times stop arms have been run on my bus. And I've had to blow the horn to stop a student and giving them the signal to stop because someone is not going to stop. So, I mean, I think there's other areas we can maybe do for safety of schools, our buses. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Because I do have a few questions. Okay, all right, great. All right, next person is Ms. Kim Stacy.
My name's Kim Stacy, and my address is on the card. I'm a school bus driver. My concerns are the GPS. They're not going to improve anything. That's what our dispatches are for. That's what our radios are for. We have routers that know our whereabouts, what our route should be, what our route shouldn't be. The GPSs are just going to be more of a problem than they are going to help. That money would be put to waste. Cameras on the bus. We have cameras on certain buses on our fleet, and they use them for problems that are occurring that need to have you on that bus as a camera bus. So putting more cameras on the bus is not going to work either. ACs, now that might help. ACs on the buses, y'all, I would invite any of y'all to come on a summer day in the PM and ride the school bus that does not have an AC on it. It's hot on there. The kids get aggravated. Even with the windows down, it's still hot on there. If it goes to raining, some kids want the windows up, some kids don't. The rain cools them off. We have to open our side windows. In return, our panels are getting wet from the rain, which causes problems with the bus. So ACs would be a big help. And if you would take the time, any of the board, take the time to come and ride the bus on a PM summer day, you would see how hot it gets in them buses. It'd break down on medical problems. A lot of problems would not happen if the ACs. But let's talk about our wages. The last meeting we were here, I hope I can get all this in, that I was at, we talked about wages. I heard one of the ladies say that the bus drivers are under poverty level. It didn't seem to register. I think that maybe y'all think that we work a 40-hour week. We do not. We work 35 and a half hours if we get that. Some work 6, 4, 5 hours a day. Times that. Some make 12 hours, some make 12 hours an hour, some make little less than that. By the time that you take your insurance, your taxes, your retirement benefits and things like that, you have no money left in your paycheck at the end of that month for 2 pay periods. I figured it up to where I would be making probably about $1,400 a month. The poverty after that's without anything taken out of it. Okay? Once all the taxes and your retirement and your insurance and stuff are taken out, I'm $3,000 below poverty level. Below poverty level. And that's the 2015 National Poverty Level Scale. So this is something that y'all should consider. When you're going to be putting money into places, consider us as the employees and the equipment that we drive to make these kids comfortable and safe, and us safe as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next speaker, Lawana Widenar. Did I say that right? All right, fantastic.
Well, my speech will be short. I am a school bus driver, and when you get on those buses, they're like 113 to 120 degrees. They're very hot. I believe if we could have air conditioning, I'm speaking for the children and for all the bus drivers, we'd have a lot better ride, a lot happier situation for all of us. And that's what I think we really need. You consider that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and our last speaker on this topic is Ms. Tracy Butler. I don't know how you ended up at the end.
Okay, because that's why I do what I do. I mean, when I hear those stories, I don't know about you guys, but I get teary-eyed to think that this is, that folks are working this hard and this is what they get paid. So that's why I do what I do. I want to piggyback on a lot that's already been said, and that is that nothing's changed since the last time this was brought up. Ms. McKinnon, you were on the board then. Ms. Karkas and Ms. Studdard, you were on the board at that time. Nothing's changed. We haven't had a bus stolen. We haven't had a lot of problems with lawsuits regarding buses and anybody hitting them. We haven't had a lot of problems with the employees violating school board policy and sitting around with the idling engines. So basically, I understand that if you look at the grand scheme of things, you'll think, okay, GPS, that's a good thing. But when you're talking about $500,000 overall, and you're talking about folks who haven't had a raise in a while, I think that we can put our money in better places, especially when they're making that amount of money. And then I also wanted to tell you that there's been a statement said that it could come out of a different budget. Whenever we're working with the general fund, and Ms. Legutko and I have lots of more talking to do as time goes by, Dr. Copeland and I had a lot of conversations about this, but you got a pot of money, and that's where the stuff has to go. You can shift stuff over to capital outlay, you can shift things over, but it's basically going to come out of that gen fund. So let's just put the money into people's pockets. I'm always amazed when they get up here and speak about how they want safety, they want air conditioning things. Of course they did mention salaries, but it's amazing where their hearts are. So that's where I think we need to look at the money going into.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Butler. Okay. So that's it for the yellow cards. So with that, we have this item C35 before us. I will entertain a motion for approval. I have no motion, so this item dies for a lack of a motion.
I have to clap.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I would like to say something. Here again, I'd like to get some information. As I understand it, our special ed buses are air-conditioned, but Mr. Warrenberg, through the chair, are any of our full-size buses air-conditioned?
You know, I don't know. I would ask
Mr. Warrenberg's back there.
could answer to that. But let me do say this. I know that when this came up before, you know, the same concerns came up about the air conditioning, and I remember that, I believe I'm correct in stating that Mr. Warrenberg, if you look at the cost, the way he had it broken down on here, it was broken down at $36.04 per bus. That was what the lease of the equipment would cost. He did a comparative analysis on what it would cost per bus to put air conditioning on
That's
there,
what I
and
wanted
it's
to know.
just you can't compare it because it's so much more expensive to put an air conditioning on a bus. And so I think that was really where it's not even a fair argument to say to take that money and put air conditioning on the buses.
No. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I'd like to see that information again about the
Okay.
air conditioning.
Yeah.
Because I know we can't
Yeah.
do all that. I'm not for spending this much money on anything.
We'll bring that up at another time, but we're done discussing this item. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'd like to know about the air conditioning.
the next item up is presentations from the audience. So I have one yellow card, and this is from Keith Nichols again.
While he does that, Madam Chair, may I ask a question? On what Mrs. Studdard said, could we ask the superintendent if Mr. Warrenberg could put something together and bring it back to us at a
Yeah,
later date?
regarding air conditioning.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One of these.
My name is still Keith Nichols, and my address is on the card. The paper that I'm handing out now is a list of new school construction since 1990. I did this as a public information request, and that single sheet of paper cost me $130.70. I would appreciate it if one of you could find somebody making $100,000 a year to incorporate this information into the website for the respective schools, since that is where it probably should have belonged before somebody making $16,000 a year suggested it. I made this information request to Ms. Adams, who passed it to Mr. Merrill. I'd like to read you Mr. Merrill's response, and I am quoting here. It says, attached is the information that Mr. Nichols requested. It took 2 secretaries roughly 2.5 hours each to go through the records and compile the data. He goes on to say, not sure where he's going with this, but since we built our last school and beginning 2015-2016, support services has downsized 1 director of facilities planning and construction, 1 coordinator of planning and intergovernmental relations, 2 project managers, and 2 secretaries. Additionally, the maintenance workforce has remained at essentially the same level for the past 10 to 15 years, so we have absorbed maintaining and repairing additional school systems with no additional maintenance personnel. I requested this information simply to get a historical perspective on some data I was analyzing. Nothing more, but since Mr. Merrill seems to be inviting my critique, it would be a shame to disappoint him. In the last 15 years that Mr. Merrill mentions, we have added 12 schools. His suggestion is that we added these 12 schools and did not increase our maintenance staff. From that, I can only draw 3 logical conclusions. First is that prior to 2000, our maintenance staff was seriously overmanned. I find this one to be highly unlikely, and so we now are either contracting out a larger portion of our facilities maintenance that was previously done in-house, or we simply aren't maintaining our facilities properly. Maintaining 12 additional schools with the same maintenance staff just doesn't make sense. But then I guess neither does spending $130 for a sheet of paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Okay. We're going to move on to superintendent requests.
I'm looking here at dates for the July meetings. I don't know what might be coming up in July from any of you, or if the staff would have anything super significant, but we have a meeting July 16th, which is the 3rd Thursday. The next Tuesday, July 21st, we have a special meeting. Is that one at 5 o'clock, Ms. Legutko? Do you have your calendar? Yeah. And is that one of your budget workshops?
5 o'clock.
And on
5
July 28th at 6 p.m., is that, so the July 21st at 5 or July 28th at 6? I will not be available on July 21st, so if you want me there, do it on the 28th, and if you'd rather me not, do it on the 21st, or whatever your schedule predicts.
Do you want me to choose? Just teasing.
Can you, wait a second, can you say that again? So I know that right now on my calendar, I have,
The next 2 Tuesdays.
yeah.
I wrote down the 28th.
Yeah, so we got the 21st and the 28th, and both of those are budget meetings.
Right. Now, let me ask, since you mentioned that, are we also doing a budget workshop anytime? I know we've done them in years past. Some want to do them, some don't, so.
Ms. Legutko, would you tell me what we're doing on the 21st and what we're doing on the 28th? We have several meetings during the summer for budget. It's pretty standard, and you guys have to approve one by September.
Right.
Right. It says on what Ms. Legutko handed out that the 21st is for the review draft and approve tentative budget for proposed advertisement. On the 28th, it says first public hearing and adoption of the millage and the tentative budget.
Right.
And then on September 10th. And she gave this to all of us.
Yeah, we have it. I've got it all on my calendar.
So nowhere in here do we have a budget workshop scheduled. And it would be if the board wants.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm
we
just asking which one you want to add the legal discussion on, not if you wanted to have
Oh,
one. I'm
oh,
sorry,
oh,
I might have
okay.
said that confusingly.
Well, so let me ask this. The 21st, yeah, so the 21st is the initial, can we do a budget workshop prior to, would that be prior to her presenting, or?
We can't do anything till she gets her numbers from
Right.
the state. So
Okay.
that might be why we're holding off. I feel it's important for us to have a budget workshop. It's especially for our community to see,
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I'm okay to when we do it.
Okay.
As long as we can do one.
Okay.
So we want to incorporate it into the one on the 21st, if that's enough time for her. Otherwise, we do it on the 28th.
I thought we were talking about legal.
Well, we are, but we're
talking
talking
about
about 3 different things. So right now, we have 2 special meetings scheduled, one in July. In addition to our regular meeting on the 16th, we have one on the 21st and one on the 28th, and those are both regarding the budget. So we're talking about where do we tack on a budget workshop, and where do we tack on the other workshop for legal services. So I would recommend that we tack one on to the one and another one on to the
So
28th.
Which would the board prefer? And I guess for Ms. Legutko, which would be better timing for you for a budget workshop? Through the chair, sorry.
Yeah.
I can do the first one or the second one, either one, whichever works for you. I will be ready to present a budget, do the workshop. So it's
Could
whatever
we-
is convenient for you.
Could we do the budget workshop before we decide what we want to pay
Yes.
an
that's-
attorney?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's
Okay.
do that.
So
So-
if this, the
so we'll
21st was
plan-
at 5, so what time would we want to start the workshop?
Well, we can start the workshop at 5 and then just go right into it would be a couple hours. So why don't we just plan for 5, because that's what we have it set for now, and that's what I've got on my calendar. Oh, wait a minute. I've got 7 o'clock for the 21st,
No,
and I've got 6 o'clock for the 28th.
5 p.m.
It's 5 for the 21st? Okay, I've got it backwards then. Okay, I'll make that adjustment.
6
And
for the
it's
28th.
Okay, so on the 28th, what we could do is we could hold the workshop for the legal services first, and then go right into the special meeting for the budget.
I'm good with that.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Okay, so we'll mark our calendars for that. Okay, so that's taken care of.
Are we still starting at 6 on
The 28th.
28th? We didn't change that.
We could probably move, is it possible to move that up to 5 on the 28th, since we're tacking a workshop onto it? It works for me, I can do 5.
With your work schedule?
Yeah, it does now, yeah. I can do 5.
I'm fine.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm sure staff would appreciate that, okay.
So 5 p.m.
Okay with
both
that?
days.
Okay, all right, okay. Absolutely. So I'm just gonna, okay.
Where were we? Superintendent request, or are we done?
Okay. Well, moving on to the school board requests. I'll just go first. Obviously, we've already discussed the workshop for legal services, and then I think I just heard a request from a couple members of the board to request from the superintendent. If you could maybe ask Mr. Warrenberg to bring to us maybe an analysis or on what it would cost to put some air conditioning on some of our buses. I don't know that, obviously, we won't be able to do them all, but maybe you could bring some options, so maybe we could address that issue for some of our bus drivers.
And I would just ask in return,
Yeah.
if you haven't visited the bus complex at Middleburg ever, or talked to Mr. Warrenberg in a long time, I know that he emailed all 5 of you some information a couple weeks ago and was trying yesterday to run you all down on the phone because he had no input back, and we just wouldn't agenda stuff like this if you have zero interest or doesn't sound smart at all. You would just share that with us early in the process. We wouldn't waste any time with it. So thank you.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Condon? Okay. Ms. Karakis?
No, I'm good. We just wish everybody a safe summer.
Okay. Ms. Gilhausen?
I got to attend the Summer Leadership Conference with some of our district administrators last week, and all the principals of the schools were there. It was a great opportunity to get to know some new folks and learned a lot, and very encouraged by the vision and the leadership that we have in this district. So.
Okay. Ms. Studdard?
About the only thing that I haven't said that I wanted to say is there's a part of me that is sad for the district. As we're growing and adding administrators and bringing people in, I have to say it breaks my heart when I just found out today about 5 tech specialists, I think they call them, over in IT, plus a coordinator. Contracts are not being renewed for next year. And, over the years, one thing about the Clay County School District I always took such pride in is we were family. We try to take care of our people, but we're losing people and bringing in people in administrative positions. I know everybody's trying to progress and everything's moving along, but it's sad that we are forgetting our people. We've always been a family, but hopefully it'll all come out in the wash. But with that, I hope y'all all have a great summer and just enjoy yourself. My car gauge said 101 yesterday and the day before. I just cannot even imagine what it would be like on a hot bus. That would. Hey, I went in Taco Bell today for lunch, the one on Blanding, and they said their air had been broken for a month. I about died. I mean, this is just too hot to live in without air conditioning. But anyway, y'all have a good summer.
I do have one more thing. One more thing.
I was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Condon, yeah.
Way back in, I believe it was in December or January, we voted that Ms. Karakis would be our region's alternate representative on the legislative committee for FSBA. And as of last Thursday, she's now that representative because the person who was in that role took a different role on the board of directors. And so I'm sure all of you saw the email from FSBA that they are looking for a nominee for the alternate. And while we know Ms. Karakis will serve us well, we probably should give Mrs. Bush a vote from if you have anybody that you know of in a district that I feel like.
Well, no, normally the alternate was from a different county than the person.
Yeah, it
so
has to be a different
we
county.
need someone. I figured one of the other counties would come up with somebody. So
And will they come back to us? Is that how?
they'll let us know who it is.
Yeah.
But we could put someone's name in just.
Yeah, we can vote
If you
for
knew-
anybody
if-
from any of the
If we
counties.
knew somebody well, but I don't know. Oh,
Okay,
And that's one thing we forgot to say. Ms. Condon, Ms. Karakas, and I went to the Florida School Board Association Summer Conference in Tampa last week, so we learned a lot. What can you say? But it was a nice meeting. I'm glad we got to go.
We did learn that our fearless, this is probably inappropriate for me to say, but our fearless Commissioner of Education was fearful of a room full of school board members, and she
didn't show.
She sent 3 of her people, and
Who could not answer any of our questions or refused to.
I just one more thing that I just want to just make mention of. Andrew, who is sitting back there in the booth, who has been so faithful to serve us in terms of the sound and the video, and tonight is his last board meeting. And so I just want to wish him well in his future endeavors and to thank him for all of his behind-the-scenes work, and he has certainly done a great job for us. And then one more, we're going to miss you, Miss McCabe. Thank you for your years and years of service. And I just have to say this, Miss McCabe was the principal at the school where all 3 of my boys graduated, and so I just have fond memories of back then, and I know she was a great, she was just a great addition to our school district, and I wish you the best in your retirement, and your husband as well. So thank you for your years of service. And with that, this meeting is, oh, we got one more attorney request. Almost forgot. Yes.
2 things.
Yes.
I just want to address briefly that last meeting. The objections was made by Ms. Stutter that we were violating Section 120.525, and she actually relied upon the opinion by Mr. Bickner that said Section 120.525 did not apply when she set a meeting August 15, 2014. She furthermore, at that last meeting, stated that she was concerned about violation of the Sunshine Law because 4 days' notice in the newspaper. When she had that meeting on August 15, 2014, Mr. Bickner posted the notice on the clerk of the court's wall 48 hours before. I want to warn you on one other thing. If her prior objection is correct and 120.525 is correct, then your special meetings that you're having next week need to be published in the Florida Administrative Register. They don't. After you asked me to do the research, I pulled down the Florida Administrative Register. You can go online and look at it. And I didn't find any notices for any school boards for special meetings.
Madam Chairman.
Madam
Chairman, I do need to clarify this.
Ms. Stutter, I'm sorry, but we're done. We need to.
No, I need to clarify this. I can tell him where he can find it.
Mrs. Stutter, you can take it offline.
The Florida Administrative Register. If you will look at your statute.
This meeting is adjourned.
And we are also exempt from having to put it on the Florida Administrative Register. You said